What's up, everyone out there in YouTube world, Facebook world, social media world, the world? Welcome to another episode of Musings with MGL. Today we're going to get into the big one, all right? Took me a little while to get around to this one. Been kind of busy lately, but it's been all the talk of the world in the Second Amendment community over the last couple of weeks, and that is Liberty Safe. And does Liberty Safe care about the Second Amendment? As most of you know by now, just to give you a quick sum up on it, Liberty Safe has been brought under a huge amount of fire and scrutiny lately by the Second Amendment community and the conservative community as a whole, because it was found out that they are cooperating with law enforcement when it comes to turning over the combination codes to people's safes. So, in a nutshell, just to recap again what happened. So, FBI got a warrant. I'm going to pull up here just so everybody can read it, what their statement was. They issued a statement kind of outlining everything, so just to bring everybody kind of up to speed. But on October 30th, 2023, Liberty Safe was contacted by the FBI requesting the access code to the safe of an individual to whom they had a warrant to search their property. Our company protocol is to provide access codes to law enforcement if a warrant grants them access to a property. After receiving the request, we received proof of the valid warrant, and only then did we provide them with an access code. Liberty Safe had no knowledge of any of the details surrounding the investigation at the time. So, again, just to go back in summation, what happened was there was a suspect in a January 6th. Are there any suspects up there any other suspects out there as far as the FBI is concerned? Probably not. But anyway, there was a suspect related to January 6th, and they got a warrant to search his house. Now, as of today's date, I don't think anybody's even seen this warrant yet. I don't believe it's been released. Nobody knows kind of exactly what was in it or what it was for. But the allegation is that they were looking for some sort of a specific firearm maybe. So they got a warrant to search this guy's residence. Part of his residence was his safe, and so they, of course, couldn't get into his safe because they didn't have a combination. So they called up Liberty on the phone and showed Liberty a copy of the warrant, and then Liberty just voluntarily gave over the combination to this man's safe to where they were able to access it. I don't know what they found or didn't find. Like I said, there's no additional information to the story. The main issue that we care about as Second Amendment rights advocates is what Liberty did in cooperating with the FBI. So a lot of people, of course, are angry because, number one, a lot of people probably didn't know that Liberty still had the ability to do that. So you go buy your safe from Liberty and you enter in your code and you think that's your code and nobody else can have it. Apparently, Liberty Safes has fail-safe access codes that will allow them to always get into your safe even after you change the combination. It's like a reset combination. Now, part of it is probably a safety feature because there may be some people out there that like that concept, because if they lose their code or forget their code, then they can always call up Liberty and tell them that they're the owner, provide proof or whatever, and then Liberty would give them the reset code and they'd be able to get back into their safe. So I can understand why some people might like that as a concept, but a lot of other people obviously don't like that as a concept. Now, I don't know if this was known when you buy Liberty safes or not. I don't know if it's in their contract. I don't know if it's on their receipt. I don't know if it's in their owner's manual. I don't know. But fact of the matter is they were keeping backdoor access to people's safes. So that's number one. I think a lot of people are mad about that, obviously. And then, of course, they're mad because they're cooperating with the FBI. So the FBI is calling them up, and then they're just basically voluntarily giving it to them. Now, a lot of people may think that they're required to turn over that code just because law enforcement have a warrant. That's absolutely not true. When law enforcement gets a warrant, whether it's the FBI or somebody else, they get a warrant for a specific person and or entity. And the warrant only applies to that person. So if they get a warrant to search my house, that warrant only applies to my house. They can come in here and search my house. I don't have to cooperate with them, meaning I don't have to give them combinations to my safe. I don't have to give them passwords to my computers or my phones that they find. The warrant allows them to come in and search whatever the parameters of the warrant is to search. I don't even have to cooperate with them. I can't obstruct them, so I can't stand in front of the door. I can't put an extra bolt on it. I can't tackle them while they're trying to search through my computer or whatever. Then you'd get an obstruction charge. But as long as I just get out of the way and let them search, I don't have to do anything to cooperate them. Certainly, a third party who is not even a party to the warrant doesn't have to do that. So if the warrant is for Joe Smith to search his house, that warrant doesn't apply to anybody other than Joe Smith. So if it's Liberty doesn't have to abide by that warrant. They're under no legal obligation to give over that combination. If the warrant is for your cell phone, Apple is under no obligation to turn it over. How do we know that this is true? Because as most of you may remember, Apple fought this very concept. The FBI got a couple of cell phones from some dead terrorists in California, and they wanted the passwords and the codes to get in there to search their cell phones. And they asked basically to get it from Apple. They told them to pound sand. They got a subpoena for Apple. Apple fought it, went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, Apple has no obligation to turn over the passcodes to the phones, and or they weren't even necessarily looking for passcodes. Apple apparently probably has a backdoor way to get into a lot of cell phones if they're locked, and so they wanted the proprietary software, etc., to be able to do that as well. And the Supreme Court said no, they're under no obligation to do that. So we know, based on legal precedent and just the concepts of how warrants work, that Liberty had no obligation to cooperate with the FBI in turning over that code. That is a private policy of the company. And when people found out that that was a private policy of the company, they got pissed off. And so now they're getting the Bud Light treatment, and people are canceling their Liberty safes. They're making nasty post messages about Liberty safes. They're getting a whole bunch of grief from politicians and all these people telling them, why are you cooperating? If a left-wing liberal company like Apple is going to tell the FBI to piss off when it comes to giving access codes to people's stuff, why in the hell would an alleged conservative-style pro-Second Amendment company like Liberty Safe give out the access codes to the FBI so they can search it, especially when they don't have to? I mean, they can be pro law enforcement. We can all be pro law enforcement, but that doesn't mean that you put that over your customers' rights or your customer satisfaction or your bottom line for your company, because I'm pretty sure, the investors and the stock price took a little bit of a hit there, probably aren't happy with what's going on. Now, of course, Liberty did issue a second statement. So after all the grief came out, they issued a second statement. Here, I'll just put it up on the screen. I'm not going to read through it, but y'all can look through it. Just Google it. You'll find it. But basically, here's what they've decided to do to fix the issue. Two things. One, they've decided to give customers the option to opt out of that keeping the secret reset password. So now if you buy a safe from Liberty, you can tell them, presumably mark a box on something, or there's going to be some process for it where you can tell them, hey, I don't want you to keep my reset code. If I fuck up and forget my combination and get locked out of my safe, oh, well, that's on me, but I don't want you to have it. So now there's an opt-out for customers to say, don't keep my code. The other thing they claim that they're going to do is that they're now no longer going to just comply when there's a warrant. So what they're going to say is, you need to send us a subpoena. So if you send us a subpoena, we'll give over your code. Well, there's two problems with that. Number one, a subpoena is actually easier in most cases to get than a warrant, because a warrant requires a high level of probable cause to search somebody's property, et cetera, whereas a subpoena sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can just have those issued from the state attorney's office or from the clerk's office or a judge or whatever without necessarily having to go through the same process you would go through with probable cause. So in most cases, it's actually easier to get a subpoena than a warrant, so that doesn't fix the problem. And then the other problem is they're not going to fight the subpoena. They're basically saying, oh, once we get a subpoena, we'll turn it over. Well, again, the subpoena doesn't mean you have to turn it over either. They could take the same approach that Apple did and say, I don't care if you send me a subpoena or not. We're not turning over these things because it's not our obligation to turn those things over. So the fix that they've come up with, I like the first fix, which allows people to opt out of things, because customers should always have the power when it comes to a lot of stuff like that. But the second fix is nonsense. It's just a way for them to try and get people to get off their back and try and make it look like they're fixing the situation when they're really not. So the fact of the matter is, look, I don't think Liberty did the right thing here. I'm in the group that says this is crap. They never should have cooperated. They shouldn't have turned this over. They shouldn't be keeping people's combinations without telling the people and giving them the option to check out. And their fix, I believe, is actually worse than what they were doing in the first place by simply saying we're going to cooperate with a subpoena. They should tell the government, just like Apple did and any other companies out there, when they want to try and get people's personal information in an unrelated criminal case that has nothing to do with the company, they should tell them to pound sand and figure out how to do it. Law enforcement can get into that safe however they want. If they have a warrant, they can break into it. They can blow it open. They can hire a locksmith. They can do whatever they want to do to get into it. And if the person who owns the safe makes a decision that says, I'm not going to voluntarily give you my code, they're basically saying they're not going to cooperate with them getting into the safe. And so they're willing to have their safe blown up or they're locked picked or whatever to get in there and look at the stuff. So if they're willing, as the owner of that safe and the individual who's being targeted by law enforcement, to make that decision, then that's not a decision that any company should step on or overrule. So that's my opinion on Liberty Safe. Thanks for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody out there about my channel. I'd really appreciate it. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, stay vigilant, and as always, carry on.